1673, just weeks before his own death. He even played the lead role of Argan on stage.
Of marrying off your daughter purely to gain free medical advice for your own perceived ailments might sound outlandish, but it's the core of Molière's final and enduring comedy, The Imaginary Invalid.
It's a brilliant premise, Elliot. Molière, whose full name was Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, crafted this play in 1673, just weeks before his own death. He even played the lead role of Argan on stage. This specific English prose translation by Charles Heron Wall captures the spirit of the original, and we are especially fortunate to have a new translation of the pivotal third interlude by Duane Larrieux, which brings its satirical force to life.
Argan, our protagonist, is defined by his hypochondria. He's not just a little anxious about his health, it's an all-consuming obsession. The play opens with him meticulously tallying his apothecary bills, dissecting every charge with a kind of paranoiac arithmetic.
Precisely. He's a man utterly consumed by his supposed illnesses. We hear him, for example, counting, quote, 3 and 2 make 5, and 5 make 10, and 10 make 20. End quote. He then scrutinizes an itemized bill for clysters like, quote, a small insinuative clyster preparatory and gentle to soften, moisten, and refresh the bowels of Mr. Argan, end quote. He argues over 30 sous for a clyster, insisting he'd only been charged 20 before.
It's a constant negotiation, not about his health, but about the price of his treatments. He's convinced he's dying, yet also convinced he's being overcharged. This isn't rational behavior. He complains about an 8-mixture and 12 clyster month, noting he had 12 mixtures and 20 clysters the previous month, ironically suggesting that's why he isn't better now.
No, it's the heart of his delusion. He accepts the necessity of endless treatments, but not their cost. He's particularly fond of his apothecary, Mr. Florent, for his, quote, civil bills, yet still nitpicks every line item. He notes how he's taken, quote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mixtures and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 clysters, end quote, in a single month.
And the minute he finishes this accounting, he needs his maid, Toinette, to take it all away, but she's nowhere to be found, leading to a classic Molièrean outburst where he rings his handbell repeatedly, shouting her name.
That's when Toinette enters, initially feigning injury to avoid his wrath. Their dynamic is key. She's irreverent, quick-witted, and often speaks to him more like an equal than a servant, even interrupting his scolding with a sarcastic, "Oh," each time he tries to speak.
She clearly knows him well enough to push his buttons. She tells him that Mr. Florent and Mr. Pergon, his doctors, are using him as a milch cow, questioning his actual illness. This direct challenge really sets her apart. She even actively discourages him from sending her away.
Indeed, she's the voice of common sense, albeit a cheeky one. Her loyalty to Angelique, Argan's daughter, is also evident from the start. Argan, in his self-absorbed state, then tells Angelique he has found her a husband, assuming she'll be thrilled at the prospect of marriage itself. We also see Argan's little daughter Louison, who feigns death when threatened with a whipping for lying about seeing a young man with Angelique.
But Angelique is secretly in love with Cléante, whom she met 6 days prior. This is where Argan's delusion really drives the plot. He believes he's marrying her to a doctor for his own benefit, not hers.
Exactly. He reveals that Mr. Pergon arranged the match with his nephew, Thomas Diafoirus. Angelique's confusion is immediate because she knows a Cléante, but not a Thomas Diafoirus as her intended. Cléante even appears disguised as a substitute music master to speak with Angelique, and they perform a duet together.
The introduction of Mr. and Thomas Diafoirus is where Molière's satire on the medical profession really takes off. Mr. Diafoirus is pompous, and his son, Thomas, is incredibly dull.
Thomas's opening compliment to Argan is a masterpiece of academic absurdity, comparing Argan to a second father, to whom he owes more than his biological one. Then, when addressing Angelique, he launches into a convoluted comparison of her beauty to the statue of Memnon and a heliotrope flower, all delivered in florid, pre-rehearsed language. He even offers her a thesis on what he just said.
It's hilariously devoid of genuine emotion. His father, Mr. Diophoros, even praises Thomas's lack of imagination, saying, quote, "A good omen, I used to say to myself, trees slow of growth bear the best fruit. That dullness of apprehension, that heaviness of imagination, is a mark of a sound judgment in the future." End quote. He's basically saying Thomas is a perfect doctor because he's rigid and unthinking.
And the ultimate proof of Thomas's medical prowess, according to his father, is that he is, quote, blindly attached to the opinions of the ancients, and that he would never understand nor listen to the reasons and the experiences of the pretended discoveries of our century concerning the circulation of the blood, end quote. This is a direct jab at the resistance to William Harvey's groundbreaking discovery.
It highlights the medical establishment's obstinacy and refusal to accept new scientific understanding. Then, the real Cleante shows up, disguised as a music master's replacement, and he and Angelique perform an extempore opera that cleverly conveys their true feelings to each other, right under Argan's nose.
It's a brilliant device. Their duet, disguised as a pastoral, speaks volumes of their love and predicament, even as Argan remains oblivious to the subtext. He only comments on the bad taste of the opera and that the father in the story is a fool for putting up with such things. His inability to see beyond the surface is striking. When Argan demands Angelique shake hands with Thomas, she pleads for time to feel sympathy develop, and Thomas uses Latin distinctions to argue he can still marry her by force while respecting her wishes.
Argan, of course, insists on the marriage. His brother, Beralde, tries to intervene, attempting to reason with Argan about his medical obsessions. Beralde argues that Argan isn't really sick, that nature heals itself, and that doctors are mostly frauds. Beralde notes that Argan has survived all the treatment precisely because he has a strong constitution.
Beralde asserts, quote, "I mean, brother, that I know of no man less sick than you, and that I should be quite satisfied with a constitution no worse than yours," end quote. He critiques their elaborate jargon, stating, quote, "All the excellency of their art consists in pompous gibberish, in a specious dabbling, which gives you words instead of reasons, and promises instead of results," end quote. This is Molière himself speaking through Beralde, lampooning the medical practices of his time. Beralde also correctly identifies Belline's scheming nature, noting she profits from his obsession.
Argan predictably dismisses Beralde's arguments, remaining fiercely loyal to his doctors, especially Mr. Purgon. He even says Molière, the playwright, is an impertinent fellow for making fun of doctors, threatening to let him die without treatment if he were a physician. Argan tells Beralde he'd rather give his fortune to a friend who would give it to Belline than leave it to his children.
That's a darkly ironic touch, given Molière's actual fate. This resistance to Beralde's reason culminates when Argan's refusal of a prescribed clyster enrages Mr. Purgon. Purgon dramatically disowns Argan as a patient and unleashes a torrent of medical threats. Beralde also suggests Argan should send Angelique to a convent if she resists, which Beralde quickly counters by saying Argan lacks the heart for it.
He declares, quote, "I must now tell you that I give you up to your bad constitution, to the intemperament of your intestines, to the corruption of your blood, to the acrimony of your bile, and to the feculence of your humors," end quote. He then threatens him with a ridiculous sequence of escalating diseases: bradipepsia, dyspepsia, apepsy, lionterry, dysentery, and dropsy. Argan is terrified, believing every word. Toinette then ups the ante by disguising herself as a doctor, a highly eccentric one who immediately contradicts everything Mr. Purgon has said. She rushes off to consult about a man who died yesterday to discuss what should have been done for him. Her diagnosis is a highlight. Argan lists his various complaints: head pains, misty eyes, nausea, weariness. Toinette, in her doctor persona, declares every single one of them to be caused by, quote, the lungs, end quote. It's a complete dismissal of any nuanced diagnosis. She even advises him to cut off an arm and pluck out an eye because they steal nourishment.
And her remedies are equally absurd. She advises him to cut off an arm and pluck out an eye because they're stealing nourishment from other parts of his body. She then rushes off to a consultation about a man who died yesterday to discuss what ought to have been done to cure him. This whole exchange skewers the arbitrary and often brutal practices of 17th century medicine.
This whole exchange really skewers the arbitrary and often brutal practices of 17th century medicine. Argan, despite his hypochondria, still finds her a bit extreme, which is telling. Berald is skeptical of the new doctor's wild suggestions, observing that Argan is only saved because his constitution is too strong for the remedies.
Indeed. The play then moves towards its resolution, with Toinette and Beraldi's final scheme, Argan's death. This reveals the true characters of his wife, Beline, and his daughter, Angelique. Beline, upon hearing the news, expresses relief, seeing Argan's death as freedom from a grievous burden. She immediately plans to seize his assets and rushes off with Toinette, who is still disguised, to get the keys.
Her response is chilling. Quote, "Heaven be praised. I am delivered from a most grievous burden. What loss is it to anybody? And what good did he do in this world? A wretch, unpleasant to everybody." End quote. It's a stark contrast to Angelique's genuine grief and her promise to honor his memory by renouncing the world and following his intent to put her in a convent, even if it means sacrificing her own happiness by not marrying Cléante. Indeed, Argan, having witnessed this, finally understands. To solve all his problems, his need for medical attention, his desire to keep Angelique near, and to ensure he is, quote, always safe, Beralde suggests a ludicrous solution: Argan should become a doctor himself. Cléante agrees readily, saying he'd also be an apothecary if necessary to win Angelique. The idea is that as a doctor, he'll be immune to disease, or at least have constant access to remedies. This sets the stage for the famous third interlude, a burlesque ceremony where Argan is admitted to the degree of Doctor of Medicine. The ceremony is set to music and feature dances.
This interlude is incredibly significant, and Duane Larrieux's translation finally makes its full satirical impact accessible. It's written in a mix of Dog Latin, French, and Italian. The entire ceremony is a farce, highlighting the hollowness of medical education and practice. The gentleman in charge welcomes the attendees, noting how people worship doctors.
The president asks why opium makes people sleep, and the baccalaureate holder responds with, quote, "Because there is in it a sleep-inducing power which by its very nature relaxes the senses," end quote. It's a tautology, pure circular reasoning presented as profound wisdom. Another doctor asks why rhubarb and senna purge the biles, and the answer is that they have a purgative power.
And it gets worse. For almost every illness, from hydropsy to fever to madness, the answer to what to do is always the same. Quote, "Give a clyster, afterwards purify, then purge," end quote. When asked what to do if the illness doesn't respond, the answer is simply to repeat the treatments. Quote, "Clysterize, purify, and purge repeatedly," end quote. The baccalaureate holder even advises coupling if a patient is terminally ill.
It perfectly encapsulates the repetitive, often ineffective, and sometimes harmful treatments of the era. The oath itself is disturbing. The newly minted doctor swears, quote, de non jamais te servir de remedies aucunis, quam de ceux seulement almae facultatis maladus dut il crevare et mori de suo malo, end quote, which is translated as swearing never to use remedies other than those of the faculty, even if the sick person should die.
The oath prioritizes loyalty to the faculty's dogmas over the patient's well-being. Then the president confers the power to, quote, clisterizing, signaning, purganding, sanctuanding, ventusanding, sacrificanding, persanding, tillanding, coupanding, trepananding, brulanding, uno verbo, selon les formes atque impund ucudendi parisis et per totem terram, end quote. It's a damning indictment of unchecked medical power, granting license to kill without penalty.
The interlude concludes with the chorus celebrating the new doctor, chanting, quote, mille annis et manget et bibat, et signet et tuat, end quote, meaning, for 1,000 years let him eat and drink and cure and kill. It's a hilarious and horrifying summary of the play's central critique.
The play, then, is more than just a comedy about a hypochondriac. It's a sharp social satire, exposing the dangers of blind faith in authority, the self-serving nature of some professions, and the folly of neglecting genuine human connection for personal obsession. Molière uses laughter to challenge convention and encourage critical thought.
This timeless critique of medical practice and human delusion, as captured in Charles Here-on-Wall's translation and particularly enlightened by Duane Leroux's translation of the third interlude, truly makes Molière's final work a masterpiece. If you found this discussion thought-provoking, share this episode with someone who enjoys classic literature or has a healthy skepticism of doctors.